This is Bellevue Now, a public affairs show about issues that impact our community. I'm your host, Lenka Wright. For our show's debut, our first guest is City Manager Brad Miyake. Brad has been Bellevue's city manager since May 2013, having worked his way up through the organization since joining the city as a budget manager in 1990. Well, Brad, welcome to the program.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, first off, what does a city manager do?
Well, essentially, like what the city manager does is it runs the day-to-day operations of the city. And for Bellevue, those operations include the police and fire services, utilities, transportation, parks operation, and administrative services such as the legal help, as well as information technology and finance, just to name a few. Another big part of the city manager job is to provide policy recommendations to the city council, as well as implementing the council's vision and policies that they establish. And then another part of the big part of the job is formulating the budget for the council to consider. As well as another part of it is hiring all the staff for the city, no big, small feat, as well as terminating staff when necessary. And that's in a nutshell what the city manager does.
So how did your previous jobs with the city prepare you for being an administrator who oversees a $1.5 billion biennial budget?
Great question. I think my previous jobs in finance, utilities, and in the city manager's office really provided me great experience in preparing me to take on the city manager jobs. My first job, as you mentioned, was in the budget office, where I learned all about how the finances worked in the city. And what I quickly learned is that nothing moves in the city without money. So that's a really good experience to have as a city manager. In the utilities department, I was both a deputy director as utilities director, and I learned how to run a multi-million-dollar operation with over a couple hundred staff people. And then finally, as the deputy city manager in the manager's office, I oversaw the finances and operations for multiple departments, and gave me a great depth of how the operations worked in the city, as well as I got an opportunity to begin working with the council.
Bellevue operates under a council manager, which is the most popular form of local government in the United States. Explain, how does that work?
The council hires a professional manager to run the city for them, where then it allows them to spend their time and energies on setting the vision for the city, as well as creating policies for not just the city, but for the region as well.
And Brad, I have to ask you this. When you were in school, did you ever think, yes, I want to be a city manager when I grow up?
Boy, while I was in school, this was never on my mind. And in fact, even while I was in school, I never heard about the city manager job. I must say that the city manager job is probably the most challenging job I've ever had, but it's also been my most rewarding job. And I would recommend for any of those going into public service to consider the city manager track.
Very well, we may have some future city managers out there right now.
That would be great.
Very well, thank you, Brad, for joining us for the program.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up, we'll take a closer look at a growing regional issue and what Bellevue and you can do to help end the cycle of homelessness.
Your actions make a big difference for water quality in the Puget Sound. Hey Bellevue, don't drip and drive. Car leaks are one of the leading polluters of the Puget Sound. They can be harmful to local waterways, wildlife, and even your family and pets. Car leaks are not only bad for the environment, but they're bad for your vehicle too. If you see a leak, make sure to visit an automotive shop and get it fixed. It's better for you, your car, and the Puget Sound. For more information, go to fixcarleaks.org today.
This is Bellevue Now. In King County, the 2017 point-in-time count found more than 11,600 people are experiencing homelessness countywide. This number includes more than 6,000 people sheltering in transitional housing or emergency shelters, and nearly 5,500 people on the streets, sleeping in vehicles, tents, and encampments. The one-night count of homeless individuals, now known as Count Us In, used a new process and methodology for the count. For the East Side, there are reportedly 284 homeless individuals living here. For more on how the City of Bellevue is addressing this regional issue are our guests. We have Terry Smith, who's the Assistant Director for Bellevue's Parks and Community Services Department. And we also have Captain Andrew Popochock of the Bellevue Police Department. Well, welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you.
Well, Terry, let's start with you. How is the city approaching a societal issue that isn't easily solved?
Yeah, thanks, Lenka. As a city, we're primarily focused on 4 areas from both a prevention and an intervention strategy. Those include outreach, support services, facilities, and enforcement. Prevention services can include basic needs, emergency financial assistance, or counseling. Services for individuals experiencing homelessness can include job retraining programs, housing assistance, or addiction treatment. Facilities are important in helping both from having a day center, a place people can go during the day, and or overnight shelter. Both of these provide opportunities for people to have a place to stay, maybe store their belongings, and also have access to some services that can help them either transition out of homelessness or again on the prevention side. While we're working collaboratively with several organizations, both locally and regionally, we work with King County and their Whole Home Initiative. Locally on the east side, we work especially with Kirkland, Redmond, and Issaquah. We also work very closely with local nonprofit agencies and faith communities who actually provide many of the programs and services and operate the facilities that we have here on the east side.
All right, well, Andrew, as a police captain, you've become acquainted with some of the homeless individuals who are living here in Bellevue and on the east side. Through the annual count, we've learned that the vast majority of them are actually from the area. What else might surprise people to know about these individuals who are experiencing homelessness?
I think what people don't understand about the situation, how complex it truly is. Those people are on the streets for a variety of different reasons. You have everything from the people who truly got into a bad financial situation and lost their place to live. You have the people who are using drugs, especially with the opioid epidemic in the area. You have people that are using alcohol and other substances. You also have people that are dealing with mental illness. And all those are very tragic circumstances that get people onto the street. You also have a section of the homeless community that just truly wants to be homeless. And all of those, in combination of one or more of those factors, causes certain people to be resistant to options to get out of homelessness. So it's a very complex problem, and the solution is also very complex.
And Terry, the trend we're seeing nationally is housing first in order to make homelessness a rare, brief, and infrequent occurrence. Explain to us a little more how this strategy works in practice.
Sure, Housing First is a homeless assistance approach that prioritizes providing permanent housing to people experiencing homelessness first, because that ends their homelessness. And from there, you can build a platform that helps people to get additional services or resources that can keep them out of being homeless. So the general idea of providing and supporting those basic needs is a foundational port to moving someone, an individual, out of homelessness. You know, Bellevue also recently adopted an affordable housing strategy. And that strategy includes actions such as increasing the supply of very low or low-income housing. And those serve families and individuals that either are at risk of becoming homeless and or are trying to transition out of homelessness.
And Andrew, there have been some community concerns raised about what's known as vehicle residency. That's when someone's living in their car or RV. How has the police department been handling this issue?
Well, we have a multi-pronged approach. Our very first approach is always going to be outreach. We send officers out to contact those people in the vehicles. We also have partnerships with different community organizations that go with us, or maybe we ask them to go separately to contact these people. The goal is always to get the person out of homelessness. We'd like them out of the cars and into either transitional housing or full housing so that they are no longer at a risk, because it is risky to be out on the streets at night. The next step is always enforcement. If we offer the resources and they choose not to accept the resources, we expect all residents of Bellevue, whether or not they're homeless or not homeless, to obey the laws. And we ask the same of these individuals, whether it be parking laws, whether it be dumping laws, whether it be sewage laws out of some of the RVs. We expect them to obey the laws just like we expect every citizen to. And we would take enforcement action. That may be towing, that may be ticketing those cars. The next step is if you look at the outreach side, so the outreach side, it may take more than 24 hours. And we understand that from citizens. That causes frustration sometimes, that the car is sitting there for over 24 hours, because the parking rules say that you must move your vehicle within 24 hours. But the goal is always outreach, is getting the person out of the car. And that may take many contacts over and over. But if we reach the goal of getting that person out of the car and into housing, it's a great benefit to the city as a whole. It gets the person into a full residence. It reduces the amount of calls on emergency services. It also makes the residents happy that there's not that issue of the vehicle being parked there. Part of our enforcement strategy is actually to set up a task force to address the parking concerns. And we've set that up, and we specifically use that task force to go to areas where we've had citizens complain about parking. And we will do the outreach, and then we will also do the enforcement from that task force.
Yeah, and Andrew, let's talk a little bit about panhandling. That's when you see someone approaching cars, stopped at a light, or perhaps pedestrians on the corner. They're asking for money. What should someone do?
Well, first off, we always say don't give money to panhandlers. We don't want you to give the money to them. There's so many great organizations out in the community that do excellent work. So we would prefer if you gave the money to those organizations. It is a constitutionally protected right for that person to go ask for money. But it is also constantly protected for you not to give them money. It is your choice not to give them the money on the street corner. Why we say that is because there's many reasons, like I talked about before. You have the financial reasons, you have the drug, the alcohol reasons for people to being on the street. You don't know if that money is genuinely needed by that person to obtain housing tonight, or is it for drugs and alcohol? Or is that person abusing the system and they're actually a housed person that is out there collecting money, because we are a very generous city. Our citizens give out large amounts of money to people on the street corner. There's also the fact that, like I said, you aren't obligated to give that person money. We do, if you have concerns about this, we do have a statute in Bellevue that prohibits aggressive panhandling. And what that would be is using intimidation to have you give them money. If you have any doubts if the person is being intimidating towards you, you can always call the police department. We don't mind responding. Also, the person's out blocking the roadway, obstructing traffic, you can always call us as well. If it ends up being not a crime, we still have the opportunity to do outreach, like I talked before. It gives our opportunity for officers to have one more contact. Sometimes it takes many, many, many contacts before someone will accept the services provided. So we want you to contact us when you see that behavior, because it gives us one more opportunity to not only educate the person, but possibly get them into the services they need.
Terry, Bellevue has had a temporary winter shelter for men for several years now and is currently seeking to site a permanent shelter. How do services like this help in addressing homelessness?
Sure, I think Captain Popochock has mentioned some of the reasons for having a winter shelter, in that people are outside and they are exposed to the winter elements. So the idea of a winter shelter, either it's for men, or we also on the east side provide shelters for women or families. It gets someone out of the elements into a safe, warm place. Many times they'll get a meal, but also there's opportunities to access services that may help them either transition out of homelessness or give them some basic things to help them really make it through the day. So again, our primary focus is on prevention and getting people out of being homeless. That being said, we also recognize that things do occur and sometimes individuals do end up being homeless, and these shelters can provide some of that temporary support, and we are seeing a growth in that need here on the east side.
And as you've both stated, homelessness is a complex issue, and it's one that's not just occurring here in Bellevue, but it's in the Puget Sound region, the east side, as well as nationally. We're seeing more homelessness. If someone wants to help, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, we encourage people to volunteer. You can contact local nonprofits or faith groups, and you can volunteer meals. You can help out with shelters. There's a lot of different opportunities. You can also give. You can give money, or you can give resources. Sometimes that can be food or clothing to local agencies that can use those materials to support individuals who are homeless. We definitely don't believe that you should be giving money directly to panhandlers. As Captain Popochock has mentioned, that there's a lot of better use of those dollars by providing those to faith groups or agencies that help support the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, anything else that you'd like to add?
I would encourage anybody watching this to make sure you talk to your friends and coworkers about it, and make sure everybody's educated about homelessness in the area. And then also, if they hear disinformation, to make sure they try to correct it.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining me for the
Thank you.
program. And for the latest news about our city, be sure to visit us online at BellevueWA.gov. Until next time, have a great day.